Hi, I'm Greg Yulin with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. Today, I'm really excited about this conversation. I get to sit down with Sam Dark. Sam is the COO at Zeigler Auto Group, really one of the largest dealer groups in the country with, I think, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but 35 locations at this point?
Yeah, so actually 41 stores, 4 states, about 2,600 employees. So we're Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and then our headquarters are here in the state of Michigan near Kalamazoo. So.
Love it. Love it. No, that's fantastic. Well, Sam, I wanted to start today. And again, thank you very much for joining. I really do appreciate it. I know you got a lot of things going on, but really appreciate you taking time.
My pleasure.
So I wanted to start a little bit of your story, your background. I think it's an interesting one, but wanted you to just share kind of how you got to where you are, because I think for a lot of folks that get into this industry, we start selling cars and you don't know where it's going to go. But I think your story is a pretty fascinating one.
In fact, I think it's interesting because for the first several years, none of us assume we'll be in automotive very long, right? So I started out in high school washing cars, cleaning cars for an Isuzu dealership out west in Utah. And I never, ever would have imagined at that moment that it would become a career. And yet it's crazy. This automotive industry we're in, it truly is a great American industry where anything is possible. If you come into it wanting to work hard, if you come into it wanting to give back, help other people and succeed, there is just no ceiling to what's possible. So worked for several years washing cars, a couple of years washing cars, went into car sales, had just a great fun career at Isuzu and then Kia, and then went to Saturn. Right. I've got a list of winning brands there between Isuzu and pretty much non-existent in the U.S. anymore. And then Kia or Saturn, rather, which is no longer around. Kia was not anything near what it is today, but went from there, transitioned into working for a F&I, a Swiss-based insurance company, an F&I provider, Zurich. And at that company had a great 17-year career working with some of the largest dealer groups in the entire country, and really got to see a completely different side of automotive, the side that most people don't get to see, with dealers that have worked hard their entire life to build just incredible organizations at large scale, very similar to Zeigler. So, and then I'm here. So obviously there's more to the story. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it, but it has been just a fun ride the entire time. So.
Well, talk to me a little bit about first your time at Zurich. So, I mean, that's a decent chunk of career in and of itself there. So you're selling insurance. What was the model like? Did you leverage agents? Were you selling to dealers? What was that relationship like? Like what were you doing, at least at the time when you were there?
Yeah, so the first decade that I was there, I worked with dealers in Idaho and Utah, the Northwest, and worked directly with these single point and usually 1, 2, 3 point dealer groups, and worked directly with the dealers in buying insurance and buying F&I products. And it was interesting in at that time in the very early 2000s through really 2008. There were single point dealers that were doing great things in small communities, giving back. And then it seems to me, coming out of the 2008 recession, consolidation became the buzzword, right? Large dealer groups saw the value of owning dealer groups. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, and others went and just sought to consolidate the industry into these large mega groups. And so Zurich came to me in the early 2010s and said, look, we see this trend. There's less decision makers. There's more multi-point dealer groups. And we want to have a strategy where we deliver better to those large groups. And so I became in charge of everything west of the Mississippi. And then I had a counterpart that handled the east. And so that's where I got to work with dealers like Aaron Zeigler, Dick Garber of the Garber Auto Group here in Michigan, an incredible dealer, Bergstrom, Darrow. I mean, really some really good groups around this Great Lakes area, Texas, quite a few. And then obviously in my old stomping grounds in Idaho, Utah, California, and whatnot. Just great dealers that see the value of automotive, are willing to give people incredible opportunities regardless of their background, regardless of where they come from, again, with that desire to work hard and give back, teaching and training them to, for GMs, run multi-million-dollar businesses, for sales managers, lead teams that are growing and for finance people to deliver value and intangible products on top of the cars that salespeople sell. So that's kind of how that transition happened from that local area to the U.S. I always laugh too, by the way. Whoever drew up the map for this strategy, right? There were two of us in the early 20 teens. How does somebody living out west end up being in charge of Michigan? That just seemed crazy to me, but it worked well and it served me well. It was during the beginning of the COVID era that Aaron came to me and said, "Hey, look, you've done great. You've had an incredible career at Zurich, but you would actually love even more working in retail." One of the toughest decisions back then I ever made was leaving that corporate gig and coming back into retail. But I haven't looked back a single day since. It's been an incredible ride these past 4.5, almost 5 years.
That's great. That's great. So what did that transition look like? And I'm curious also about, so Zeigler, do you guys have your own insurance company or insurance products that you sell?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we partner with a company called Brown & Brown and we offer a different array of products from Zurich, but very similar to what the Zurich model was. Zurich was a direct writer. So Zurich employed its own reps, as they still do. Brown & Brown is an agent and they vend products through their reps. So we lean and rely on a team of reps that help us train and develop and work in those products.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And it's just an interesting shift, right? Because the models can be different for sure, depending on which side of the business you're on and in the scale that you're at too, that the insurance area is just such an interesting one. And, I feel like, and you can tell me from firsthand experience, certainly, but, the larger you get as a dealer group, it seems like the more and more it makes sense to start to have your own, whether it's kind of white labeled products that you're reselling, or, if you're going to build out your own almost insurance agency yourself, once you get to a certain scale and you're doing enough deals, it can actually start to make sense to move that direction too.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the financial statement of any dealer group across the country, and F&I is an important part of the income. Taking that in-house and owning that on your own is an important step in kind of the evolution. And, it allows dealer groups like us to do some pretty cool things to help our customers, right? You can make decisions on behalf of customers and not be bound as tightly to a contract as you would be if you were just a normal customer. So I think it helps us deliver that ultimate automotive experience to our customers, to our team members, and create opportunities for expansion within the group and really continue to grow. So it's an important profit center.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Sam, I also wanted to talk with you. So, and this is interesting. I don't know if this was your role or your intended role when you came into Zeigler. So maybe you can share that a little bit too. But you talk a lot about, and publicly, right, on social media and through podcasts and things like that, about leadership training, about leadership development. So it seems, at least from the outside looking in, and I'm hoping you can pull the curtains back a little bit. That you're really focused in that area in your role currently as COO. Coming from Zurich as an F&I guy, and then I'm just curious how your responsibilities have either stayed the same, grown, changed with this role that you're in now, and why is it also? So two-part question. Sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit here.
No, you're good.
Two-part question would be, it seems that the COO often in a lot of organizations ends up with this training responsibility, which is a good thing usually. But I'm curious, how that transition looked, and then why you think that training should fall under that COO role.
Well, so first of all, I would say we've got an incredible team here at the Zeigler Auto Group. There are folks on our executive leadership team that focus on individual areas, roles, responsibilities. So Aaron's dad, Harold Zeigler, started the organization back in 1975. Aaron, his son, took it over in the early 2000s. I think his dad built it up to 4 or 5 locations, and Aaron has just created this empire as one of the largest auto groups in the entire country. So we have a team of really good people that specialize in specific areas. And one example of that is our head of training and development. He's a former principal who has a passion for training and developing people. And I think in those early 2000s, well before I ever came on board, Aaron said, look, our best team members, the best people in our organization are those that understand our culture, that are solidly a part of the team. And and see the vision and are willing to give part of their lives in service to that vision. And so his vision then, and it remains so today, is let's allow employees to engage with different opportunities to create a career path that extends from the moment they come aboard here, whatever role that is, and allows them to ultimately retire here should they choose to. And I feel like, in my experience looking at different dealer groups, a lot of people talk about that. It seems to me few people actually deliver on that. So if you come here as a porter and you express some interest, as an example, in becoming a technician, we've actually got a training school that's headed up by our director of fixed ops, a recruiter in our fixed ops, and you can actually go through a 6-month course as a porter, as a service writer, as whatever, to become a technician. And at the end of that, you've got real world experience. You don't have to go to college or to school to get it. And you actually, through a deal we have with a tool provider, you walk away with a ton of tools and then a job and an opportunity. It's not a guarantee that you'll have success in that role, but it is the training and the resources that surround you that if that's what's in your heart and that's what you're passionate about, you'll have an incredible opportunity to have a great career. And then should it turn out, hey, you know what, that's just not quite right for me, but something else speaks more to you. And if you're willing to put in the work for that, there's an opportunity there as well. So Aaron created something called Zeigler University. It's an online training course, but then it also resides in each one of the stores we're in. And throughout the course of a month and a year, there are multiple opportunities to engage in that. So it starts with the leader of each store meeting with their teams and understanding what their hopes, desires, kind of career path is. And then there are classes and courses that go throughout a month that will help you develop in multiple different areas. We have things called performance groups. So if you want to become a finance manager, a technician, a general manager even, you can meet once a month. There's homework, there's curriculum, there's things you have to do to progress and forge yourself. But at the end of that, and as you go through it, we support that life cycle of the employee. If you align well with the culture within the Zeigler Auto Group, we want you to be able to have an incredible career for life if you want it. So
yeah. So I'd love to dive into that a little bit because I love the vision, I love the high level story, but tactically it can be really difficult to execute on this, right? Because it seems like again, in theory, we say, yes, we want to train people, we want to provide these career paths, we want to give people opportunities, but we all have jobs to do. Right. And we can't hold people's hands and create this stuff. And you mentioned a curriculum, like it almost needs to be somebody's full-time job. But I'm curious what your perspective is on that and how you execute that, because the execution is where, I think it's really, really difficult, especially to do it well.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So when I first came aboard here and I would see the different training activities that were going on, as someone in a corporate environment where you're so focused on selling and being in the field and generating revenue, sometimes I'd look around in the middle of these classes and I'd go, who the heck is selling? Like, we're taking time out. And I'll give you a great example. So we do something called the Zeigler Speaker Series. We have a great speaker coming up this week. I think his name's Walter Bond. He's a former NBA player. I don't know what he's going to say yet. He hasn't spoken to us, but he brings his life perspective into the locker room. Those are our training rooms. And his life is not automotive. It's sports in this case. And so he's going to bring lessons about winning in sports and competition and collaborating and working as a team towards a goal. And then the team listening to it just sort of absorbs it. They take notes. They walk away thinking about things that they can implement from that message. And the team becomes stronger as a result. Well, guess what? It takes an hour for that. We get a significant percent of our entire employee base that attends that. We record it. So for those that don't attend, they can watch it later. And it's interesting. What happens is over the course of the year is you see multiple of these speakers. We've had Tom Izzo, basketball coach. We've had Yossi, the car dealership guy, talk about how he built his social media empire. We've had authors and just people with super interesting backgrounds, not related in most cases, except car dealership guy, to the automotive industry, but it allows us to grow. And I remember in the early days when coming away from Zurich, I was like, well, wait, we're sitting here in prime time in the morning talking about basketball. Who's selling cars? Well, we're a large enough organization. There are folks that are still doing that. We're still taking care of our customers as we go through it, but we're respecting the individual enough to say, hey, look, this is a worthwhile activity. We want to develop you. We want you to have an opportunity to grow. And if you're willing to come after it and show that interest, have at it. And employee after employee after employee, I hear says, hey, I'm super grateful for it. It's one of the reasons why, the Zeigler Auto Group and Aaron has achieved Glassdoor's highest honors, best places to work for, best workplace balance, because rather than just talking about it, as so many organizations do, we truly act upon it. Those performance groups, I was just in one for folks that want to become general managers. That's an entire day, either as a GM out of your store, or as a sales manager out of your store, thinking and talking and discussing and sharing best practices. And it's up to you, the individual, to get takeaways and make your business better as a result of your engagement there. But if you're willing, again, to do that hard work, the return is huge. But I do think you nailed it on the head, right? Like, it does need to be somebody's full-time job, and we've got that leader and that head of talent development. But it also needs to be up to the individual, right? And that's why I said there's no ceiling in automotive. The sky's the limit to what you can achieve and accomplish, as long as you're willing to work hard and you're willing to go after it. And we want all those people, like everybody that truly wants to win in automotive. We want them to come work for the Zeigler Auto Group, because they're going to pursue that education on their own. They're going to want to become better, and they're going to want to reap the rewards of great work-life balance and working for a great company as well. So that's kind of what we depend on, I think.
Yeah, so you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think I just want to make sure that I, first of all, understood it correctly, but if I did, put a fine point on it and almost put a flag in it, because you mentioned it's a lot on the individual, right? And they have to care. So you can give them all the resources in the world, but it doesn't sound like, and maybe I'm misreading this, but it doesn't sound like you're necessarily creating and holding people's hands and saying, okay, Joe, if you want to, one day become a GM of a store, here's the 17 things you need to do. This is the timeline you should do them in. We're going to help you along the way and push you forward. It's more, look, Joe, there's a lot of resources out there, and we're going to continue to put them in front of you, but you have to own this, right? You have to decide that you want to do this. And, yes, there's 40 things out there, but you're going to have to put in the effort and the time to decide which ones are going to have a good impact for you, right? And which ones are the skills that you need to develop. You're not necessarily going to have a person telling Joe, hey, go do these things one by one by one by one. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely right. So I love the phrase I heard somewhere. I think I heard on a podcast somewhere. Somebody said, success isn't about knowing, it's about doing. It's not in the information, it's in the execution. If it were in the knowing, we'd all be billionaires with rock hard abs, because if you watch TV late enough at night, you get all the solutions, right? Or on the internet. Like, information is cheap. The path is cheap. It's the ability to execute, to do, and to go after it. And, as you describe the scenario, somebody needs to be totally self-driven. I can find exceptions to that. As part of this performance group we were in today, there's a sales guy that was super motivated by a great manager who saw his potential, who knew how to kind of touch a nerve in the right way and inspire in the right way. And he's caused this individual salesperson to become one of the best salespeople in the organization through his engagement and interaction. So it's not entirely up to the individual. As a leadership team, we want to be able to inspire as well. But if I'm talking to a room of the individuals, I'm going to talk about how important the individual is. If I'm talking to a room of GMs or sales managers, they've got to be their best selves as well. And somewhere in between that is the magic. But we want all the self-driven folks. I mean, that's pretty special. When you have somebody that's self-driven and is paired up with limitless opportunity, they're going to create an awesome result.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to think about it. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit too, Sam, about culture. Right. And about having a consistent culture, obviously a large group that you're a part of, that you're helping to lead. You said 41 stores, and then I think some other businesses too. And I'm sorry, I didn't write it down as you said it, but how many employees are you at right now?
About 2,600 or so employees. Yeah. So it's a large organization.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
26. Yeah, that's a lot. So
Yeah.
how do you, and spread across multiple states? So how do you ensure consistency in culture? What are some of the things that you can do as an organization as a lot of dealers continue to scale and grow and become larger and larger? How do you do that without losing kind of that magic at the center that is the culture?
Yeah. Well, so the employees are the culture, right? And culture is a
Yeah.
tough thing because as soon as you talk about it, it'll slip between your fingers and it's tough to really truly identify. But you would probably admit that you walk into a dealership and you can pretty quickly tell, do they have a successful culture or do they have a dysfunctional culture, right? Or are the facilities clean? Are they well maintained? Are you quickly greeted? Do people have a smile on their face? Are they happy to be there? Are they excited to be there? Are they bending over backwards to try to serve you and to give you something? Like I through my experience at Zurich and then in sales, or early in my career, you can sense that difference. And yet it's so interesting. I talk to so many people all the time that say, hey, how do you create that? Well, I think it's super intentional over a long period of time, and its core is making and keeping promises, and again, giving people opportunity that they might not otherwise have anywhere else. So there are things that we do. We have an incredible team of general managers that lead our stores, that understand the culture, that reinforce it daily, that live that Zeigler difference. But then there's also things that we do on a regular basis together as a team across all those 2,600 employees, such as the speaker series, right? Such as we have an onboarding class called Keys to Success. So you come be a part of the organization. There's an entire group of people that will surround you to help make sure you've got the tools necessary to succeed as long as you're going after it. We do once a month general manager meetings. It's basically a 20 group best practice session where we ask people from each department to come in and share a best practice from their store for the past year. So as an example, we'll rotate through parts managers and office managers and finance people and salespeople and sales managers, new car and used car. And the entire focus of that monthly meeting in that month is, if you can imagine, a parts manager. And you may be able to imagine a parts manager isn't used to standing up in front of a large group of people, including the owner and the executive leadership team, and presenting a best practice. So if they're smart, they sit and think about, hey, how do I do that? They try to put together the best practice possible. They share that. And then what happens is everybody gets a chance to see it, how well they prepared, how good is their idea, what's the result of that idea. And then as they hear really good ideas, again, you hear 41 in a session, each parts manager there gets to pick one and they can go back and implement it. And the magic of the culture is in the competition as we compete store to store, but also the collaboration as we selfishly share these best practices with each other. And then the success as you execute. Remember, success isn't about knowing, it's about doing. And you execute on these best practices, and then you reap the financial rewards and benefit. And slowly over time, none of this happens quickly, right? But let's say parts managers come in, maybe a couple times over 2 years, they hear these different ideas, they start implementing them. That's progress, and it stimulates conversation outside the meeting. So from a culture standpoint, I think those are some of the things that help to preserve it. We also, I think, have a winning culture in terms of celebrating successes. There are things that we do to help make sure that individual contributors are recognized and that successes are celebrated and shared. We do what we call diamond drops. They're basically thank you notes from team member to team member. And we incentivize team members sharing with each other how they're grateful for their teammates. And if they see somebody doing something awesome, we want to acknowledge that. And I don't know, all these things put together over time creates the culture that is the Zeigler Auto Group.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that was a lot of stuff, right? So
yeah,
I think, if I try to boil it down a little bit and I think about, okay, so what does all that tie back to? And even I hear the way that you speak about it. I hear a lot of pride, right? Like your employees are proud to work there. It sounds like you're proud to work there. And And I wonder, and maybe you have a perspective on this, how important is the connectedness of all of the employees from, Aaron, from you, from, the executive leadership team to the GMs at the stores, to the departmental leaders. How much of this pride comes from the full organization being connected, and how much of it is reliant at the individual store or department level, where you need those really strong leaders throughout every level of each store? I don't know. What do you think that balance is, or have you, I don't know, kind of put a number on that or thought about that?
It would be fascinating to ask. Once a year we go through and do a process called culture surveys. So we have members of our executive leadership team that will meet with every single individual store and go through and ask questions about things that are going well, things that are struggling. Those are sometimes some tough things to hear, as a GM or as a sales manager, as a leader, service manager in an organization, some of the feedback that could potentially be critical. But one of the tests, or one of the qualifications for being a leader in the organization, is being able to hear that constructively and then being able to evolve and adapt and to grow. So when you say how much is it being connected as an organization or an individual store, I'd say it's both. It can't be one or the other. You've got to have a great team at a store level. You've got to have pride at that store level, working for that OEM. Our OEMs are some of our closest, best partners, whether you're a Subaru store or a Ford or Stellantis or whatever the brand is. You've got to have some pride representing Zeigler and that brand in the marketplace. But then also you've got to have pride in the organization. And, I think we communicate regularly and directly with our team members. We do it through a bunch of different ways. You mentioned we have a podcast, and we started that several years ago, three or 4 years ago, and we release an episode every single week. And it's a great way for our team members to hear from Aaron, as an example, and other members of the executive leadership team, make sure they're understanding kind of their thought and philosophy on different things. Like I mentioned, we do the monthly GM meetings. We do a monthly sales kickoff call where Aaron gets on with all of the salespeople across the organization and kind of gives his take on the marketplace. And, it is interesting, when you hear from a leader on a regular basis, it kind of helps you understand the direction of the organization, where we're going, how we got where we are, and kind of what that future looks like. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Do you know what your listenership is on your internal podcast? So, if you have 2,600 employees, right, how many are press and play and actually listening to it?
That's a good question. So on any given month, we could get 900,000 or so, somewhere around that ballpark. And then our external one gets a little tougher because we have listenership information on it, but a lot of people also listen to the little clips we put out on social. So it ends up kind of getting split that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, the internal ones are always interesting. We do something similar. We call them leadership chats, and you kind of produce it, and you want every single person to listen and enjoy it.
You have to listen.
That's right. But and sometimes it's difficult, and people consume media differently. We've actually, I don't know if you've done this, but we've actually started also tracking transcript views, right? So we'll put it out on our intranet, and so we'll look at plays, but we'll also look at transcript views, because for some people they would rather be able to just pull it up and read through it than sit there and watch a video or sit there and listen. So different ways for people to consume.
And that's something that I sort of got from Yossi, from the car dealership guy. He said, hey, his goal as part of his organization is he wants to meet consumers where they want to consume, right? And so to your point, if it's on an audio podcast, have at it. If it's on a video podcast, he'll make that available. And then you'll see, too, that CDG does the printed newsletter as well. So it goes out in 3 different formats, and I'm sure if there's a 4th, whenever it's created, he'll figure out what that is and he'll release it. But I like what you're doing with releasing the transcript and then tracking those views. We may have to start doing that as well. That would be kind of a cool enhancement. And again, to your point, give people another way to consume it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned car dealership guy. You actually have you mentioned partnered with him, and you're doing a podcast there. That one is Industry Spotlight, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're hosting that, and
Yeah.
and I want to get into it a little bit and kind of how that came about. But first, I mean, what a hack, right? As a
Yeah.
COO of a dealer group, you get to talk to other leaders in the industry and try to. Well, I'll use this in as positive of a light as I can, but steal shamelessly they're great ideas and bring them back and implement them. So kudos on pulling that one off. But how did that all come about?
So Aaron was on Yossi's podcast, got a ton of great feedback on it. Yossi had heard our podcast, and then Yossi sort of jokingly threw out there, he said, hey, we're looking for someone to do what he does. And we talked for a couple months before we kind of nailed the format and what it was. I didn't want to compete with what he does and the different types of audience he goes after. To your point, I thought it would be really cool to sort of mirror what we do in our GM meetings, which is have people stand up, give a best practice, quantify the results. So we have a dealer that will come in with an industry partner. And obviously the dealer talks about the problem that they encounter. The industry partner talks about the solution and how it's quantified. And then Yossi's ask is, hey, it can't just be it can't be just an easy plug for the dealer. It's like, let's ask the tough questions. So how much does it cost? And what were the flaws or the problems with the implementation? And I'll tell you, it has been, to your point, a heck of a lot of fun. It's better than sitting on an hour Zoom call getting a pitch, because you're sitting there with a Bob Tasca, as an example, a great dealer on the East Coast, a pilot, a car driver. He brought in a company called Busy Car, and they specialize in automating recalls. And I'll tell you, AI is the buzzword of this era, or at least this year, past couple of years. And Busy Car just kind of blew my mind with how they automate and really kind of deliver on this promise of pairing, a recall to a customer, to a car, to a cell phone number, to parts availability, and then a slot on your schedule, and kind of make that customer slip into your schedule and come into the store and have an experience. So that's just one example. We've had a bunch of different guests over the many months we've done it so far, but it has been educating to me, to your point, also giving us access to, some of the best dealers in the country and presidents of large companies that's who we prefer to do business with anyway. And it's been a heck of a lot of fun. So.
That's great. Maybe trying to wrap a little bit. I could probably talk to you for hours here, but want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you.
So when you're thinking about, you mentioned implementation, right? And it seems like that's an area that probably every dealer in the country, either implementation or utilization or both, are major pain points. So have you come across, either in your organization or in these conversations you've had, some things that stand out that are trends or maybe just consistent elements to a successful implementation and then ultimately successful utilization long term? How do you get your team inside the stores to bring this stuff in with open arms and then to use it?
Ooh, that's a good idea. That's a great question. When you say implementation, do you talk about implementation on the job that individual team member does, or are you talking about like new tools or ideas?
I guess either. In my head, I was going to, thinking about the industry spotlight and thinking about, kind of industry partners coming in. You're talking about, you mentioned Busy Car, right? So this is going to be tools that the dealership's going to bring in. How do you help your team implement these things? Because obviously you think, or somebody in the organization thinks this is a good idea. It's going to make us more efficient, or it's going to drive more revenue, more profit for us. So how do we get people to say, you know what, I'm on board?
So, what's interesting is my time with Zurich, I got a cool view of how something was well implemented and then how it was atrociously implemented. And I saw the difference between a sales guy walking in and talking to a dealer, selling him on an idea, which there's some really good salespeople and there's some really good ideas. And then the implementation team that would back it up completely failing, or the product sucks, right? And it is a fair question, right? There's the old joke. I don't think it's too funny anymore, but the dealer goes off to a 20 group meeting, comes back and has a great idea. And the team says, hey, we just got to kind of wait out the implementation of this idea because we know it's a bad idea and it's going to fail. Well, at our organization, I would say one of the key steps, so that vendor I just mentioned is an example, I'll be pretty transparent with most of these vendors and say, look, in order for you to get into our stores, you've got to have a great, solid success case somewhere in one of our stores. So rather than saying, hey, we're going to roll it all out across the organization, pick a store. Let's run a pilot. Let's make sure that what you're saying truly works. And then once it does, we'll have that person stand up in a meeting, share that as a best practice, and everybody's going to get excited about it and they're going to come after it. So there'll be some excitement, some buy-in, and some energy behind the idea working and that it being a really good idea. I think that filter gives credibility when you bring an idea to the team where they're like, hey, it is vetted. It's not just some harebrained idea, right? So I think that's part of it, is asking vendor partners to prove out truly what works and what doesn't work. You can't always do that. And there are a lot of variables between stores and brands and states and all that jazz. But you can do it enough that that I think it does help. The other thing I think is, in a really good culture, team members are going to support each other, but they're going to also challenge each other. Tom Izzo, Michigan State basketball coach, who's been in our Zeigler Speaker Series, talks about being player-led, right? And if you're on a really good team that executes at a high level, if there's a team member on there that is detracting, that says, hey, I'm not going to do this because this idea sucks, I don't like it, chances are at our auto group, that team member is probably going to be called out and said, hey, I don't know what the problem would be in that case, but he may get called out and held to the higher standard. I would hope. I don't know that for sure, but I think being player led is probably a part of that answer. But then I think we have a responsibility at the executive leadership team to vet out ideas before we implement, so that by the time we get to that implementation side, we're implementing at a high level. And I think the other thing, and maybe this is a unique perspective I have coming from B2B, is I think you've got to expect a lot of vendors. I've had a couple people on the show and they're like, well, hey, you must have a lot of empathy for vendors now. You must go pretty easy on them in your role. And I would answer no. I think it actually makes me expect a higher level of service and implementation and execution, because they need to understand that we're going to execute at a high level. So with every vendor we do business with, I'll have a conversation before we ever get to the implementation stage, and I'll talk about the importance of being on early to every meeting and showing up completely prepared and being super efficient with time, and then knowing that we can't try to execute on something that's half-brained, half-baked. It's got to be ready, and we've got to have all the resources to succeed. And if we do our part, and if the vendor does their part, if it's a good product that truly works, success will naturally flow from that, and credibility all the way down the pipeline stays intact. And the next time we try to implement something, it'll go off really well too. So,
yeah. I love it. Well, Sam, again, thanks so much for sitting down. We kind of went all over the place a little bit, but I appreciate your being open and talking so openly with me. Anything else you want to hit on before we jump off? Anything I didn't ask you that I should, or anything you wanted to touch on?
No, just appreciate the platform, appreciate the time. I mean, it's great to be on the podcast. I mean, obviously, anybody interested in learning more about the Zeigler Auto Group, you can go to any of our social media pages, LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can direct message me. We're always looking for excellent talent out there, folks at all levels that are looking to give their all to automotive. We truly believe this is a great American institution and industry, and we strive to deliver a great customer experience, not only to our customers, but to our employees. And those that come and are a part of it see that on a daily basis. So appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah. Well, Sam Dark, COO at Zeigler Auto Group, thanks so much. And hopefully we can do it again soon sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See ya. Well, what a great conversation with Sam. I really appreciate him hopping on. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did and were able to pick out a few key takeaways. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.